Okay, I get it. It's before the watershed, but send the kids to bed early for this one. Today, I'm taking a look at a prototype for the Rosso Sim Racing Audi R8 GT3 sim racing wheel. Now, this isn't a traditional gear review, first of all because it's a prototype, but also because I think that the story surrounding this wheel is just as interesting as the wheel itself. Hello fellow sim racers. It's not often that someone offers to send you a one-of-a-kind prototype of a seriously cool piece of kit to take a look at. And it's even rarer that that wheel actually belongs to a customer, but that's the case with this Audi R8 rim from Rosso Sim Racing. The prototype wheel was commissioned by Ben Henderson, who you may know as the guy with that really sweet Porsche Pink Pig themed wrapped sim rig. Anyway, Jakub from Rosso Sim Racing sent me the wheel to get my feedback, and while I had it here, I wanted to make a video and share it with you guys. The context of this wheel is about as important as any of the technical specs. When you look at the Audi R8 GT3 wheels intended for the sim racing market, they all have one area in common where the design diverges quite significantly from the real thing, and that's, well, the front faceplate of the wheel. Replica wheels generally have a front flat profile since this is so much easier to manufacture, while the real thing has a series of complex angles. And if you want a close replica to the real thing, then well, that's actually quite a big sticking point. So then, the ideal behind this wheel was to create a more accurate representation of Audi's original. This process started out with research. Unsurprisingly, Audi aren't just going to send out technical specifications about their equipment to just anyone, but it turns out race teams are a lot more forthcoming, and they provided photographs and critical dimensions. On top of that, Audi factory driver Mirko Bortolotti will be providing feedback in the design and development of forthcoming versions of the wheel, with authenticity being the ultimate goal. The sticking point, however, was still that complex geometry of the Audi wheel, both on the front face and on the rear. These things are relatively simple to produce if you're a big company with a large composites department, but for a small sim racing manufacturer that does present a bit of a problem. Producing these complex parts in carbon fibre would be extremely time consuming and expensive, especially at this scale of production, so that's where some creative thinking comes into play. As I mentioned earlier, other replicas of the R8 wheel compromise the dimensional and geometric accuracy of the wheel in order to simplify the manufacturing process. First off, the obvious one, that multifaceted front plate. Now, this is produced from sheet steel with a vinyl covering representing the carbon weave. At first, I presumed that this was a clever workaround, and that is actually very much the case. However, I attributed this clever bit of thinking to Jakub, but it turns out he was just following Audi's lead and replicating the process that they used for the real wheel. Now, when it comes to the rear of the wheel, it was necessary to deviate from the material and build processes used on the real thing. This would be fairly straightforward in most cases, but the real wheel is finished in bare carbon weave, which means the replacement materials also have to have that same look. The solution then? Create the core of the part using normal 3D printing technology and then coat it with a carbon fibre skin. This not only ensures that the piece looks authentic, but also adds greatly to the strength of the wheel as well. As sim racers, we're pretty well rehearsed in the art of compromise. After all, our entire pastime is about making as close a replica of real-world motorsport as possible without any of the drawbacks of the real thing. And the shifters on this wheel tell an interesting story. Paddle shifters in the real world vary greatly in design and feel, but in the sim racing sphere we've definitely settled on the idea that chunky neodymium magnetic shifters are the gold standard. So when Jakub tested a real-world R8 LMS wheel and realised the shifters feel a bit like a mouse click, well then that had to lead to what you might call a positive compromise. Jakub relayed this story about the mouse click feel to me, and my immediate response was, sim racers would never accept that. Exactly, he responded. And the neodymium shifters were in fact specified by Ben, the customer, and that's no bad thing in my opinion, and it highlights one of the biggest upsides of buying a bespoke sim racing product, being able to specify exactly what you want from the wheel, and this is further illustrated in the electronics. The buttons on the real Audi wheel are well, to put it bluntly, extremely expensive, like buy a whole mass market wheel for the same price expensive. And if that's what you want in your replica, and you've got pockets like the Mariana Trench, then this wheel can be outfitted with the real deal switches. But most will opt for the more wallet-friendly spec used here, which are, well, they're more than capable enough for the comfortable, low-stress environment of a sim rig. I mentioned Mirko Bortolotti's involvement earlier in the video, and his wheel features the real spec electronics, as you would imagine, as well as a dual clutch paddle system. Obviously, his needs do differ from that of the average sim racer, as his wheel's intended as a training tool in addition to being a really cool toy. But that just further demonstrates the advantages that come from buying from a bespoke manufacturer, getting exactly the specification you want. The flip side, of course, is that you can't really go into a shop and buy one. In fact, the Rosso Sim Racing wheels are built in small batches. These are very much aimed at the type of enthusiast that knows exactly what they want. As for the rest of the wheel, well, it's all pretty much as you would expect. The grips feature beautiful hand-stitched Alcantara over a foam underlayer. The encoders are the pretty much universal CTS 288s, which are popular in the custom wheel market, and you also have a choice of mounting options. This one was supplied with a standard 70mm mounting pattern, which you can get adapters for, well, pretty much any wheel system, but Rosso can also supply the correct parts to enable mounting to the Fanatec podium hub. In a normal hardware review, I would start to wrap up the video by summarising the pros and the cons of the product, but this isn't really a product, it's a prototype, and this isn't a review. If you want to know if the wheel's any good, then well, the answer's a resounding yes. And I'm sorely tempted to add one to my roster, despite the knowledge that my collection of wheels is starting to get a bit out of hand. Instead, I'd like to close out the video by highlighting what I think is really different about what Rosso Sim Racing are doing. In producing short-run wheels with a high degree of customization for individual customers, Jakub's wheels fit a small but important niche in the market. All sim racing equipment requires some level of compromise in how closely it replicates the real-world equivalent. The R8 wheel, along with the other GT3 wheels that Rosso have produced, well, they allow the customer to decide exactly where those compromises lie, depending on their needs and, of course, budget. Jakub sees the company as taking the approach of an artisan rather than a manufacturer, and, well, it's hard to disagree. These wheels are handmade in very small batches, and as such, they're not going to appeal to everyone. But if you would like to know more, then the best place to start is their Facebook page, and of course, there's a link in the video description. So guys, that just about wraps things up here. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, it would be great if you could hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you can see more content like this in the future. So all that's left to say is goodbye, thank you very much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.